So I got a question. How do you know when you're talking to a woman who is a toxic feminist? I thought about it, and, it wasn't because they have, what are the usual tropes? They're angry, they're shouting, they have green hair, blah, 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 blah. They have those horned rim glasses, which I used to think were cool once upon a time till it became a fucking mainstream fashion trend for people proclaiming their feminism. But something occurred to me. You can recognize a person that is a toxic feminist because they think everything masculine is toxic. Just occurred to me. I was having an Irish coffee sitting here, and it occurred to me that right there was the defining characteristic of a person that was toxic in their feminist views. We all agree to disagree, which is fine. But when you denounce nearly everything that makes a man, I have a problem with that. A lot of women that subscribe to this phony feminism, they say things like, we get sick of men manspreading. Well, we have balls. And some of us have balls that are bigger than others. We have testicles. Anatomically speaking, we sit that way for a reason. I mean, I don't think we have to take up the entire, subway with our man spread. Women have no trouble taking up entire, two-seating areas with what they've purchased. They have absolutely no problem with that. They have absolutely no problem with being half naked. Yoga pants are meant for yoga. But you know what? Who am I to say? I'm not anybody's dad except my daughter's. Everything in society that is masculine is not toxic. And I have a concern with the feminization of men in the country, because one day our masculinity is going to be called upon to do something very, very physically taxing. You don't win wars with Prada. You don't fight battles with rhetoric. And countries were not founded on goddamn hairspray. They were founded through the very thing that men were built for. They were founded, unfortunately, through battle, through war, through lives being lost. They were founded through legislation that gave the okay to take another person's life. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. Young men don't grow up to be protectors of their household, understanding their feminine nature. They grow up to be protectors of their household by learning, if need be, to defend their homes. Men don't stop bullying by finding safe spaces. They do it the old-fashioned way. They knuckle up until either A, they defeat the bully, or B, the bully gets sick of catching lumps en route to beating up the kid. It's considered toxic masculinity to show your son how to fight. It's considered toxic masculinity to teach your son to defend himself from people, male or female, if they are a threat to his physical being. However, it isn't toxic to teach a young man how to be a doormat for society, how to acquiesce and simply be a tool, a utility, something of use. And I suppose to a certain degree that's what society has been. But when you take away the teeth of a shark and ask why it doesn't bite, don't be surprised that it can't bite. Don't be surprised. And I agree that there are some forms of toxic masculinity, case in point. And, the funny thing is everybody will hear what I said sarcastically in the first half of this. And any logic that I say, they won't even acknowledge. But a good example of toxic masculinity is when a father says to his son after he's notched his fifth sexual conquest in his young life, "Way to go, sport." That's toxic masculinity. There is boys being boys, and then there is toxic masculinity. Allow me to show you what it is. Toxic masculinity is when men feel the need to hurt one another over a woman. That's toxic masculinity. Do you know why it's toxic? Or shall I break it down for you? It's toxic because the said woman isn't being defended. They're simply competing for her through acts of aggression. They're competing for a human being that isn't theirs through aggression. Stupidest thing in the world. Toxic masculinity is unchanneled violence. Young men kill each other all the time. One of the biggest examples of misplaced toxic masculinity is when young men shoot each other. That's toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity isn't boys playing with fucking water guns. And you can say what you want about the generation that I come from, but at least we're decisive. Whether we're right or and that's a good example of being a strong man. You may be wrong, but you're decisive. In this day and age, we're giving young men a choice as to whether they want to be identify as an 8-year-old girl, whether they want to identify as a turtle. And then we're like, why are these kids turning out like this? Why are millennials the way that they are? And millennials are faced with all kinds of problems. And I can acknowledge that. But I also acknowledge that if millennials had been raised like my generation, we wouldn't have millennials. And men are squarely in the crosshairs of everybody. Where have all the good men gone? Where have all the strong men gone? Well, you're fucking turning them into women. I don't think anything's wrong with a person. If a person is truly transgender, if they are, what they are, that's fine. And if a man is gay, then that's fine. Being masculine has nothing to do with being gay or straight. Being masculine is a responsible sense of self, and it is a responsible sense of when to use that manhood to protect, to defend, or to take responsibility for a situation. Women wanting to turn the Boy Scouts into just the Scouts is an example of deconstructing masculinity. It's a great example of deconstructing masculinity. If you have the Girl Scouts, then why on earth do you need to destroy the Boy Scouts? Toxic femininity is the invasion of traditional man spaces, not for equality and inclusion, but for occupation. You simply want to occupy. And there will be some individual male who wants to gain a certain favor with the woman, with women in general, blue pillar, that will come to the defense of a woman in the conversation and say what I'm talking about is absolutely deplorable. Had your estrogen lately? There's value in femininity. There's value in masculinity. And when are we going to start seeing the value between each of us? I think a woman is as equal to a man as a man is to a woman. I don't think anybody should be running anything. But I don't think feminists should hide behind the curtain of we just want to have the same. No, you don't. You want to run it till it's no longer fun to run. And I don't speak on those exceptions that have laid their lives down for the country. There are women soldiers that'll make short work of me. That's feminism. You're bad enough to walk the talk. But deconstructing a man and then asking where he is when it's time to defend the country, that's such an asshole move. That is such an asshole move. You know, as we think about what our young men are becoming or aren't becoming, let's ask ourselves, how did this happen? When you're removing things that once worked when making young men, is it really, really surprising at how things are turning out? Feminizing a human being does not make him a good human being. It makes him a feminized human being. Plain and simple. And there's a sense of entitlement that anything feminine must be good. But nobody will say that. Don't have the balls to say that. A lot of people think by feminizing young men, they're making good human beings. How is that for entitlement? If I raise a feminized human being, they must be a good human being. Because that which is feminine is good, naturally. I won't grandstand to tell you about you. I'll do that in another video. But you get what you pay for. What do you think about toxic femininity? What do you think about toxic masculinity? Is there such a thing? Or do you think I'm just rambling and I'm just mean and hateful? Or are you too scared to voice your opinion for fear of displaying toxic masculinity. If you're interested in truth, smash that like button. If you're simply entertained by the sound of my wonderful voice, smash that like button. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. And until the next time, take care.